What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. It is time for round two of our Stars of Tomorrow quarterback series. On Wednesday, Josh Hudson and myself talked about the fantasy prospects. This time, we got someone way smarter than both of us who's going to tell us if these are actually good quarterbacks or not. You might remember her from last year. Crissy Froyd is back with us, and we are going to look at the rookie quarterbacks and find out where they might land and if they're even going to be good in the NFL. It's going to be a great show. Stick with us. What is up? Welcome to No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Ryan Weisse, because Josh Hudson and Joe Zolo are not able to make it tonight. This could be an absolute train wreck, or it could be our best show ever. I'm going to bet on that one. It's certainly one of our best guests, who is not in a very dark room and just a white silhouette. She's having a little bit of camera problems, but still hopping on the show with us. Crissy Froyd, welcome back. We had you for this show last year, and I couldn't think of a better guest to do this show with this year. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
So we're going to talk about these rookie quarterbacks. You just dropped your rankings this week, literally on Wednesday. And I think it's fair to say a little bit of controversy with those. So I'm going to list those off. And if you wouldn't mind, I would just like to have you talk about what your process is and just kind of how you evaluated these guys. So at number one, you have JJ McCarthy. Mm-hmm. Number two, Caleb Williams. Number three, Drake Maye. Number four, Bo Nix. Number five, Jayden Daniels. Then Spencer Rattler, Michael Penix, Jordan Travis, Austin Reed, and Michael Pratt as your QB 10. So I think the two major things that are going to stand out, and we're going to talk about these a little bit later on, but I think the two major things are McCarthy at 1 and Daniels at 5. So if you could just talk a little bit about your process, I think people would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like, a lot of people who follow my work. Like, I've been very pocket passer heavy the entire time I've been evaluating quarterbacks. But I mean, I've learned things, like other people have learned things, like as far as like the way that the league is evolving, that a statue is not going to get the work done. It's unfortunate, but like, I mean, I have appreciation for guys who can move now, and it's like the league, that just everything with the NFL is sped up to the point that you have to have a quarterback who can move at least to a certain extent. But I still value, I mean, I don't value mobility. Mobility comes at different positions, and it is valued at different positions for reasons. But at the same time, like, you want someone who is a steady mental processor with improvisation ability. And so it's funny because someone made the joke to me the other day, like, your beat as a reporter is mid-level game managers and gritty slot receivers. And I was like, you know what? That's kind of true. But the thing that I think about is, like, I love a high floor quarterback. There is no team in existence at the high school level, at the college level, at the NFL level, who has not been able to get the job done when they have the proper supporting cast and the proper defense with a, like, I don't know, like a high floor quarterback. Like, I mean, like,
yeah.
You need a quarterback who can operate the offense, and like all the other things are secondary, like the arm strength, like the mobility, blah blah blah. All that stuff is so secondary, and like as long as they have the floor and a decent ceiling, like, you have what you want. Like, think about Brock Purdy. Think about, like, Tom Brady was probably viewed as more of a high floor than a high ceiling quarterback whenever he really got going, like whenever he got drafted. Like, that's what you want for your offense. And so, like, the formula I've started using, like, is high floor and like secondary ceiling. I guess that's like what I use in my process of evaluation. And JJ McCarthy has, to me, it couldn't be more pure and more obvious. And like, I don't know, it's hard to go against the grain for analysts. Like, it really is. But like, at the same time, it's like, he has the highest floor in this draft class, like, by a large margin. He has all the athleticism that you could want. He has all the arm strength you'd want. So the way that I look at it, it's like, how do you not see this as the best quarterback in the class? And the majority of it is like just the just like the narrative. Like, we've thought that Caleb Williams was the best quarterback in this class for months now, and so we're not going to
Yeah.
move off of it. And intangibly, Caleb Williams needs to get over himself. He is such a prima donna. Like, I don't, I don't like him intangibly at all. And most people don't, but it's become so instilled in our heads that this is the best quarterback prospect in the nation. I think in the NFL's head too. Like, this is the best quarterback available for the picking, so we're going to label him as that. And in reality, I don't think that he is. I just don't.
It's definitely an interesting take, and it's kind of the opposite of what we're seeing lately, where a lot of folks are talking about
Hmm.
prospect fatigue with Caleb
Yes.
Williams and Drake Maye, and that people
That's
are
what happened
dropping
with
them
Trevor Lawrence and all those guys, like, in the
100%.
past that were like the number one quarterback. Like, they always, like, the number one pick. Like, me and Paul Feinbaum had a very long conversation about this one year. Like, when we were talking about draft, like, I had gone on SEC Network with him. Like, we've done that a lot, but like, we were saying, like, it gets to a point where a quarterback or a prospect is so highly valued that you don't even talk about them anymore. And I
Yeah.
think it's very true.
But I think it's interesting the take you've taken with it is there's almost a complacency that we felt like we didn't need to see more from Caleb Williams. And that's why when you look at all of the intangibles, there could be guys potentially in this draft. And we're seeing something similar at wide receiver. We're not going to talk about wide receiver today, but people are saying Malik Neighbors could be a better NFL player
Hmm.
than Marvin Harrison, but we've all just
Yes.
accepted Marvin Harrison. So it's an interesting take there. I'm not going to have you talk too much about Jayden Daniels because that's actually the question we have prepped for Jayden Daniels.
Mhm.
So looking at your rankings, like other than that, I think I don't want to say they fall into the consensus because you're very high on Spencer Rattler, and I'm going to let you know
I
we
love
may end up getting some
Rattler.
questions on. Yeah, well, we may get some questions. We didn't have a big plan to talk about him on our Wednesday show, and everybody kept bringing him up. So apparently, he is a very popular guy
Yeah, I mean,
in the community.
he was a Heisman Trophy candidate for a reason. Like,
Yeah,
he was 100% a Heisman Trophy candidate for a reason, and he looked like Heisman Trophy Spencer Rattler at the beginning of the Senior Bowl, like throughout the entirety of the Senior Bowl, actually. And like, I don't understand why people are so low ranking wise on Spencer Rattler. And I think, like, he has had an excuse for pass protection and supporting cast his entire year at South Carolina. Like, I told someone the other day, like, they're like, it's like they're a planet in the solar system of the SEC, and the whole sky is dark, and Spencer Rattler is the shining star. Like, I
no,
genuinely think that's what's going on there. And like, I think he needed a change of scenery, like I said, but the change of scenery that he was met with, like, did not give him what he needed to thrive. And so I think it makes him not much more impressive. But also at the same time, like, with the way that South Carolina performed as a whole, like, it made him fall under the radar, if that makes sense.
no, it makes a ton of sense, and that's something you run into with a lot of these quarterbacks. The biggest knock, really, on JJ McCarthy is that he didn't have to do it, and it's like, well, that's not his fault. It's kind of the opposite of Spencer Rattler,
Hmm.
where the team was just so damn good. But with Rattler, it was that the team wasn't very good, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not. So I know I like
Yeah.
that take a lot. Let's just kind of go down the prospect list here. While Caleb Williams isn't your QB1, we're going to start with Caleb Williams. And my question to you, I'm actually going to flip a little bit of what Josh said here because Josh wants me to ask what makes him an elite level prospect. But something I've been bothered by with the Caleb Williams experience this year is we have been throwing around the term generational talent when it comes to these quarterbacks for a very long time, very often. So Trevor Lawrence was a once in a generation, and now 5 years later, 4 years later, Caleb Williams is a once in a generation. So I guess my question to you
Yeah.
is he elite? Is he once in a generation?
No, no,
Okay.
absolutely not. No. Um, and I think that everyone likes to do that for shock value in the draft process. They really do. Like, it's their favorite thing to do. And every single year, there's always the QB1 is always a generational prospect. I
Yeah.
think that Joe Burrow, 1,000%, like, God help him, he's been placed in a bad situation, has had some unfortunate ups and downs. But that to me is generational prospect. But we should not use the term as loosely as we do,
Yeah.
and we do it
So often.
every single year. There's a prospect every single year. And it's not, there is not a generational prospect every single year, and I wish people would really realize that, because they don't.
Well,
And
and maybe realize what
I
the word
think,
generational means.
yes, yeah, look it up in the dictionary. But like Caleb Williams, like he has so much together. Like I said, I am an advocate for the pure pocket passer. Like I think he's a great pure pocket passer, but his intangible issues are so huge and no one takes the time to realize that. Like we've talked about it before, and like I mean Caleb Williams can't get through a game of things going bad without throwing a hissy fit, for lack of better terms. Like he
Yeah.
cries, he goes to the stance with his mommy and his daddy, like he huffs and puffs his way through. Like this is not a mature man. Like he needs to get over that hump, and that is so much bigger than people make it out to be. That is a big deal. That's a really big deal. No one is going to respect that. And like whenever we look at like the next level, like the Bears players are already calling him out and saying, "Hey, we're not going to put up with this shit. We're not going to put up with it." And I think that that's something to be realized. I think that they're going to iron him out, but I think that he needs to overcome that. And there is no such thing as a generational talent that is still acting like a child once he enters the NFL. And I think that Caleb Williams is still working himself out of acting like a child. Like it is what
So,
it is.
so you would say his maturity is the biggest
Yes.
flaw in his game
Hmm.
is the issue.
Yes.
Um,
Incredible mental processor. That is
I,
what I pride myself on most in analysis, and I think that Caleb Williams is a fantastic mental processor, but he needs to mentally get over himself at the same time.
I think that's great. I had a question. I wasn't sure where I was gonna fit it in, but I think it fits in here perfectly. Do you think the Bears made the right move, or would you have stuck with Justin Fields? There's been a lot of talk about just resetting the clock on that rookie
Ooh.
contract for them, and it seems like that's probably a big reason why they did this. They kind of lucked into that first overall pick. Do you think they made the right move, or would you have done something differently? Would you have handled it
Justin Fields is bad. Justin Fields is not good.
differently?
Not a good quarterback, just to be honest with you. It's the same narrative I've been pushing. Like mobility and traits don't produce talent. They just don't. And I feel like people need to get over that in the modern era. It's like, yes, the edge rusher is getting faster. Yes, you need a quarterback with improvisation ability, but like the one that can move is not the best for you. And he has not been the best for the Bears, and he's not going to be the best for anybody. Justin Fields is a bad quarterback. Just plain and simple. It just is what it is.
There you go.
Um,
I don't think we need to elaborate on that. Bad
no.
quarterback. I love it. When you look at the QB2 in this class, it's kind of changed a lot. It was a
Yeah.
very hard Drake Maye for a while. Jayden Daniels,
Hmm.
now your boy JJ McCarthy moving up. But I want to talk about Daniels. You have him as your QB5, lower
Yes.
than I've probably seen him anywhere else. I guess
Everyone
what
has
are
him low.
you
Everyone has him higher than I do.
yes, what are you not seeing from him that it has you where you're putting him all the way down at 5 in the quarterbacks of this draft?
Let's look back at the past 3 years. Like that's what I'm saying. Like let's look back at the past 3 years of Jayden Daniels, and what do you see? It's nothing special. I
Yeah, I
mean,
was gonna say
I was pushing the hell out of Jayden Daniels 2 years ago. Like I was promoting him as a top 10 quarterback in the country. Everyone told me that I was crazy, and I finally gave up on him because he couldn't score through the air, and he's still like I mean he's gotten better at that. Like the scheme has fit him better, but like he. I want to see my thing with Jayden Daniels is like, are you a flash in the pan? Is it just
yeah,
one good year? And that's what I need to see from him, like in the NFL. Is like I watched him at Arizona State, and he failed to be productive as a passer. And I thought part of it was from the offense. And like Brian Kelly at LSU, if you go back through the first year of comments from Brian Kelly about Jayden Daniels, he was not impressed with him whatsoever. And neither was I.
yeah.
But I will say in this past year, there are so many situations that I look at the LSU supporting cast and the LSU defense, which this is a school that we once renowned as DBU. It's not. It's not. I went there, so that's a lot for me to say, but it's not. Um, he kept them in the games. Like he kept them in a good place. And they would not have the LSU Tigers would not have had a shot in hell if it was not for Jane Daniels in so many different games. But I just question, like I said, like, can he do it on a consistent basis? Because what happens if he's in an Arizona State situation and he becomes a non-factor like he was before? Like I simply need to see more. I will gladly eat my words on Jane Daniels if Jane Daniels is who he was. Um, this past year for 5 years straight. But until I see that, I'm not buying in. Trey Lance was allegedly so amazing, and he got overtaken by one of my top quarterback prospects, who I pride myself in a lot on taking recognition of him, and that's Brock
Yeah.
Purdy.
Well,
Like,
I remember we read a lot of your Brock Purdy stuff, which is why we wanted to have you on the show last year,
that's
because
my
you
guy.
picked it out, like you knew what you were talking about. It absolutely.
There's a
And
picture of him and Stetson Bennett hanging on my wall, and was I wrong about them? No. No, no,
I
no.
love it. I love it. I think, and maybe you can speak to this. I think the disconnect with Jayden Daniels might be the fantasy footballication of America. And this is a fantasy football show. So we love Jayden Daniels because of what
Mhm.
his rushing could do. But when talking with you, we're just talking about pure quarterback. And it sounds like that's where maybe the disconnected is everybody's so excited about what they could do with their legs. And it ties so well with what you said about Trey Lance. We saw the draft
It's
capital.
a trend. It's a trend. That's all that
Yeah.
it is a trend. Like, improvisation ability, yeah, you need it, but like, if if your offense needs a quarterback that can run, you are lacking in your running backs and wide receivers at the end
Yeah.
of the day. It's your offense is not functioning the way you need it to, because the quarterback is not supposed to do everything for you. And if you need your quarterback to do everything for you, then you need to go back in the film room and go question what you're doing on schemes.
There you go. Speaking of quarterbacks who didn't have to do everything, as we discussed, I think it's safe to say you believe in JJ McCarthy. The college
Yes.
production isn't on par with what we've seen from other people, but again, we've mentioned ad nauseum that it's a product of his environment. They didn't need him to do everything, which is such a great thing that you just said. But do you feel, you mentioned you're really loving high floors? Do you see him as the highest ceiling in this class as well?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
I do. Um, he has all the traits that everyone else is talking about, like the arm strength, the mobility, the athleticism, the improvisation ability. JJ McCarthy has everything, but he is simply not being asked by Harbaugh to utilize it all. And I really wish that he went to an offense that would ask him to utilize all those things, because I think that he could put on a fireworks show. Like, I really do believe that he is capable of all these things that we talk about and pride all these other quarterbacks in. And it's what he brings to the table. But like, just like me and Brock had the conversation, like, about like, hey, they're not asking me to put the ball on the rope. Like, my roommate is the guy who's like the top running back here. They built the whole offense around him. Like, I'm not trying to like talk bad about him, but this offense is built around him because he's so good. Like, it's things of that nature. And I obviously think that JJ McCarthy is a much better prospect than Brock Purdy is in multiple aspects. But I mean, he's not just because I'll say it in one sentence, like, just because a quarterback is not asked to do something does not mean that he cannot do something. And I feel like people miss the mark on that all the time. And everyone was yapping about Malik Willis and how good Malik Willis was. Thank God I didn't fall into that trap. I fell into another trap that was named Carson Strong, but that's a whole other story to
Ah,
talk about for about a year, honestly. Um, but that's what they were all talking about. Like, he has a howitzer for an arm, yes. Like, he can move, yes, he can. He's Houdini, yes, he is. But what else can he do? He can't. The key thing, he can't play quarterback. And when he got to the NFL, he couldn't play quarterback. And
yeah,
his 40 something percent completion rate should have told you that in college. But no one wanted, it's like people are mesmerized by these traits.
yeah,
And like, that's what I don't understand here is like, JJ McCarthy has all of these traits, and we choose not to pay it. Not me, but y'all do. Y'all choose not to pay attention to these traits. And he manages the game so well. Like, it is just such a clear formula to me that as long as he ends up in a good situation, which he will, because he's not going to go to the worst situation in the NFL, which good for him.
yeah.
Um, he will end up in a good situation, and he has the floor and he has the ceiling.
I'm going to ask you a question.
I don't understand why this is such a hard thing for people to grasp. I'm sure people think that I'm crazy, like, for calling him better than Caleb Williams, like some of these other guys. But like, I mean, throughout history, all of our best quarterbacks in the NFL are high floor guys.
Yeah.
They all are.
the winners, plain and simple.
Yes.
And we saw that from him in college. Later on, we're going to talk landing spots to kind of end the show. And when I ask you those, I'm going to ask you where you think they're going to end up. But you are very passionate about McCarthy, and you said you hope he ends up in a situation where they ask him to do more. Do you have like an ideal, like maybe not where you think he's going to end up, but where you would just be smiling from ear to ear if he ended up in a specific spot?
Oh, he should go to the Patriots. I wish he would. I don't think he's going to, but I would love to watch him go to the Patriots. Like, I think that would be the best landing spot for him. It's funny because I've gotten very hateful messages about how like I am ranking Mac Jones 2.0 as my number one quarterback, which I think that's a whole other conversation. Mac Jones is better than people give him credit for. Leave him alone.
It was certainly so. Mac Jones is better than people give him credit for, but he did not do well in New England. Now this should be a new look New England, but there's still not a lot of weapons there. That doesn't worry you for McCarthy?
Yeah, I hope that he does well with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Like, I'm not rooting against Mac Jones, that's for sure. So
yeah, but I love the whole pocket passer New England connection.
Okay.
Bill Belichick was gonna die on that.
Yeah.
Like,
now, one of the things my co-hosts like to bring up about McCarthy that you're probably a little bit, not probably, you're certainly more tied in than we are, is that McCarthy did exactly what Harbaugh asked of him. Are NFL coaches going to look at that and be like, this is a very coachable kid and a kid I want on my team, where he could be very coveted just by the fact that he's not going to go off script. He's going to do what's asked of him in the situation.
Yeah. I think if JJ McCarthy fails in the NFL, it is the NFL coach's fault.
Wow.
I genuinely believe that. I think he brings Harbaugh didn't say with the Chargers that this was the best pro day he's ever seen. I mean, we've seen comments like this all around from people like, this is the best thing we've ever seen. JJ McCarthy is probably the best thing you've ever seen if you can groom him correctly, if you can train him correctly. And I think that it would be a nothing short of a pure tragedy if someone is not able to develop JJ McCarthy into what he should be. I think he is.
That.
I think he is perfect in damn near every single way. Like, I would not ask for more or less of a quarterback prospect. And I mean, I have just recently gone back through a lot of tape, and like I had JJ McCarthy as like QB2 and QB3 for a long time. Like, Drake Maye is really good, but he has a lot of development to do. Like, he has sidearms a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of things he needs to get better at. Like, I just don't understand the hype to the extent that it is. I mean, he's still like a top 5 QB for me, obviously. I ranked him that way. But at the same time, like, he is not, to me, JJ McCarthy is just so much more polished. Like, yeah, he's not, I don't know.
He's ready.
The most fun. He's not the most fun quarterback prospect, but the fun quarterback prospects never do well. Malik Willis, he was so much fun until he was horrible.
Yeah, until he couldn't get past Ryan Tannehill.
just so damn horrible. Like, just so awful. And I that's how I feel. Like, I feel about, like, I mean, I used to like swing the other way in terms of like high ceiling quarterbacks. Like, I used to hype the hell out of Tommy Stevens and Will Levis and guys like that, and then I realized that they were not good. These things don't work out. They just don't.
No,
and I think that analysts need to get off of this train of like traits. Like,
we're not
it's
learning
fun to
from
think
our
about.
history.
Yeah, it's fun to think about, but it's not good in reality.
All right. You've been a big supporter of Bo Nix.
Yes.
I feel like there's polarization when it comes to Bo Nix as well. We've heard he's probably better off as a backup quarterback, but we also think people think he's going to thrive in a West Coast system. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen everybody in the world has put him with Sean Payton in Denver. Like, everybody.
No, Malik Willis thrives as a backup quarterback with a third stringer. Those guys.
He's great. He's great at collecting paychecks.
Yeah, he's good at that. He's good at that. And
what do you love most about Bo Nix, though? Like, obviously the accuracy is to die for. He takes what the defense is given, probably as good as any quarterback in this draft, I feel like.
Floor. Same thing.
There you go.
The floor is so high. Like, I love Bo Nix's floor. Like, and I have followed this guy, like, for anyone who has any questions about watching Bo Nix, like, so many people just watch Bo Nix at Oregon. Like, I watched this guy from the moment he stepped foot on the field at Auburn, and I had such mixed emotions on him. The articles he used to write him, I was like, this is like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, what the hell are we getting out of this guy? What is he doing? Like, who is he? And I think that he found his fit at Oregon, and he became the Bo Nix that we all thought that he could be. And just from an intangibles perspective, like, I have never, like, I want to note this. I have never come across someone more respectful and more intuitive to human beings than Bo Nix is as a quarterback. Like,
Wow.
I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversations with him. Like, I think that he connects with his teammates on a high level. Just a really, really good, self-aware human being. And I think his football IQ and his dedication is off the charts. But I think that he brings all the things that you want out of a quarterback, and I think he really propelled himself at Oregon, and that he's done a really good job. Like, does he have anything about him physically that stands out, like, as in, like, comparison to other guys? Probably not, but he operates the game so well, and I think he's shown whenever he's put in a good situation with coaches who care about him, with coaches that take care of him, with coaches that train him, that he can perform with the best of the best. And to be honest with you, shame on the college football playoff for not putting Oregon in that race, because I think he would have won it all.
Wow. Who would you have left out?
Mm, I think Georgia should have been there too. I'm mad
Okay.
at this. I'm mad about this. Like, I really am. Like, I'm mad
Well, if
about the way that they
they're
organize
expanding
this.
finally.
I do love the fact that Michael Penix Jr. has, like, been recognized to be as, I don't know, bad as he is. Like,
Yeah.
he's not horrible, but I mean, he's not top 3 QBs the way people are. Like, that was the funniest trend to me. It's like, oh, Michael Penix Jr. is so great. No, he's not.
I'm
And
actually
everyone's
just going to
watching
have
it.
you continue because one of Josh's next questions was you're lower on Penix than most. Obviously there's the medical red flags, but what are
What
you
about the
projecting
mechanical
him
red
at?
flags?
I was going to say, what are you projecting him at the
Awful,
next level? It's a mechanical thing for
awful,
you?
awful.
Oh
Everything about
my
awful,
goodness.
bad. Just Michael Penix Jr. is not a good quarterback. And people who tell themselves that, they're lying to themselves. Like, he's just, and he talked about this at the Manning Passing Academy. Like, he does not have good mechanics, and a quarterback who does not have good mechanics from the ground up is not going to be good inherently, because accuracy is derived from mechanics. And
Yeah.
so, if a quarterback that is working on his mechanics and they're still not good, then therefore he is not good and his accuracy is not good. And if you don't have accuracy, you're not a good quarterback. Sorry. Like, I mean, he's okay from the pocket. He will fail in the NFL. I have no
Well,
doubt in my mind.
and that's what I saw a lot from him is in the pocket, he seems to make in a nice clean pocket, he seems to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
When things fall apart, he has a little bit of the improvisation, but then the other
Mhm.
problem is with the medical issues, you're scared to see him move anyway because he's
Yeah.
going to get killed. So,
Yeah. Not good. At the end of the day, like, that's what it simply comes down to, is he's not, Michael Penix Jr. is not a good quarterback. He just isn't.
my goodness. You are bringing the heat today. I am so glad I got to sit down with you for this show. A couple more quarterbacks to talk about here, and then we'll get to landing spots and get you out of here. Drake Maye. A lot of people seem to fall into helmet scouting. That is a flaw of one of my co-hosts, Joe Zolo. Drake Maye comes on the heels of Mitch Trubisky, Daniel Jones, Sam Howell. So everybody's now expecting subpar results in the NFL. Can he break this narrative? Is Drake Maye better than the guys that came before him? What do you see with his skill set and how it's going to fit into an NFL offense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that he has a higher ceiling than those guys did. Um, and that's what's going to break the narrative for him. I would have liked to have seen him, like, in a more ideal situation, like, garner more experience and, like, just become more developed. I think he's still just so raw in so
Yeah.
many aspects. But I think what he can be is so much more than what Sam Howell and the others could be from UNC.
So you've been talking a lot about high floor. Would you give him higher ceiling, higher floor than all of those guys? Obviously, we saw
Yeah.
Sam Howell last year, and I would say Howell wasn't great last year, but he just had so much damn volume. Like at one point, he was like leading the NFL in pass attempts and yards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he was. I think that Sam Howell is a pretty good high floor prospect. I call him medium floor. I don't think he's like a super high floor.
Okay.
But I think that Drake May has a higher floor than him. Like I said, I just wish that he could have been out there swinging for like 4 years as opposed to the time that he was at UNC as a starter.
Is Maye the most likely of the guys we talked about, Penix not included? Is Maye the most likely, or would you say the most needed to maybe not start on week 1 or maybe even week 8 or maybe not this season? Would you like to see him
Yeah.
sit for an entire
Yes,
year?
it. Yes, it. I think I think for him for sure, but I mean, like I advocate for most. Like I am a very traditional, like guys who are very mentally developed, and you go sit behind Tom Brady for 2 years. That is the
Yeah.
most. That's the greatest situation a quarterback could walk into, and I wish that people would. We live in an era of instant gratification with these guys. Like, and
Yes.
it's not. It does that doesn't happen. Like, I mean, this just like it is so rare for this to happen, and I wish people would appreciate it more. Like these quarterbacks need to sit and back someone up for 2 years with a clipboard before they go out there. Like that's the norm. That's what it's supposed to be. And it feels like most people are like, no, just no, throw them in the fire and they should be good.
Yeah,
Like,
it has to happen immediately.
yeah, but it shouldn't be that way. And I think there's so many guys who have failed that if they were not put in that situation, they probably wouldn't have failed.
Oh, such a good point. And it's interesting that you said the guys with the high mental acumen, those are the best. You mentioned those are the best ones to go sit because they're going to take in the most from sitting behind those
And
quarterbacks.
that's what quarterback is supposed to be. If
Yeah.
your offensive line, your running backs, your wide receivers are what they're supposed to be, your quarterback should not have to move. And I will firmly stand beside that till the end of time. Like your quarterback, you don't need Lamar Jackson unless your offense sucks. And it's just true. Although
Perfect.
I commend Jim Harbaugh and his Baltimore Ravens for building this offense so successfully around Lamar Jackson. But
So
I
he
mean,
changed
like I said,
everything about his game.
yeah.
So,
And you know what else he did? He became a better passer. He sucked
well,
as a passer
certainly.
for a long
Yeah.
time. Was really bad. And that is
Yeah.
why the Baltimore Ravens did not win football games for a while.
Yeah.
Is because he was not good from the pocket. And people like to chastise me about that all the time. Like if your quarterback can throw the ball the way the quarterback is supposed to throw the ball, then your team will be good. And I don't know why that's so hard to understand.
I was going to say, it sounds so simple for you to catch shit for it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why I catch so much heat for it, but it's true.
yeah. Last quarterback, let's talk Spencer Rattler. He seems to have a pretty
Mhm.
rabid fan base out there. Gets a pretty, I guess, a bad rap. He was usurped by Caleb Williams transfers, but I mean, everybody transfers these days. Do you see him as a Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts type that can rise from the day 2 part of the draft and be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
kind of thought so based on our conversation earlier, but I asked the question as it was written, knowing what my answer was going to be.
Spencer Rattler is still Spencer Rattler. I feel like people forget that. Like Spencer Rattler is so good. Like he's going to thrive. Like he has everything that you could ask for from a quarterback. He went through a rough patch, which I believe it was derived from intangible issues that he had whenever he was at before South Carolina. Like he was just like he had to mentally get himself together.
Yeah.
And I think he did a good job of doing that. I think that he put the arrogance and all that stuff aside. I think he humbled himself. And I think that I mean, quarterbacks should not be evaluated on a team to team basis. Like, I think that if people really sat down and watched Spencer Rattler as only Spencer Rattler, the way that he was at South Carolina, they would see a much better quarterback than they do. Like, I went to the Senior Bowl. I was in Mobile, Alabama with Spencer Rattler, and he was so much better than everyone else. And that singular showcase, far and away the best prospect in Mobile, Alabama. And I think anyone that really sat down, like, watched the entire Senior Bowl would probably tell you that. But
I think
I do think that he's going to do well. in the NFL, and he has everything that you want from the pocket, and he has the mobility, he has the improvisation ability. Like, I don't see very much more that I want from Spencer Rattler.
I think Rattler probably falls into this category, but would you call Rattler your favorite mid to late round sleeper right now? You
Yeah.
obviously, I said you obviously made the Brock Purdy pick on our show last year. You brought up Tyson Bagent, who came in and played
Yep.
very well in those games. So you tend to find these guys. Is that Rattler for you, or is there somebody else?
No, I think that's my guy. I think Michael Pratt has a very high ceiling but a very low floor. So I'm curious to see kind of how he progresses. But as far as like high ceiling players go and like high floor players go, like a combination of the two, like I think Spencer Rattler is going to be very well off. And as a matter of fact, if it's not JJ McCarthy, don't be surprised if Spencer Rattler is the best quarterback in this class.
Wow. So you're not even saying mid-round sleeper. You're saying Spencer Rattler could literally rise above the rest of the class.
Spencer Rattler might be the truth.
I mean, we're seeing it out of Brock Purdy. So.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a bold statement to make, but who the hell took me seriously whenever I said that Brock Purdy was going to be what he was going to be?
That's true.
And I was the only person, I think, in America that said that he was going to be what he was going to be.
Oh my goodness. What a show. Let's wrap this thing up with landing spots. Just basically, I'm going to ask you, I'm not even going to list the teams. You know who needs quarterbacks, who doesn't need quarterbacks. So basically just where do you think these guys are going to end up? So no surprise, Caleb Williams is the number one pick. You don't think anything weird's going to happen there, right?
No.
All right.
No.
Drake Maye.
I don't
Maye, where do you, I'm sorry.
I think in hindsight, they might regret that.
They might regret it. Yeah, exactly.
I would.
Where do you think Drake Maye ends up? I had him going to the Patriots. Josh has him falling to the Vikings. Well, the Vikings moving up to get him. Where do you see him falling in this class?
He's going to go to the Patriots.
You think it's the Patriots?
Yeah.
Josh actually didn't have the Patriots drafting one of these quarterbacks. He thinks they're willing to just stand pat for a year, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
No, they don't need to do that. They're in bad shape if they do that. They need somebody.
Is Jayden Daniels the number 2 pick to the Commanders? Josh has him falling and the Raiders coming up and getting him.
I think the Raiders will come up and get him.
Do you really?
I do. Like I said, once again, I think it's a bad decision, but people around the NFL make bad decisions every single day. So
every day. Josh, after seeing your rankings and doing his own research, has fallen in love with JJ McCarthy and has McCarthy coming as the 3rd pick off of the board to the Washington Commanders. You would love that, certainly. I think he is the one who I think it is Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye. And again, I think that it is mistakes. I love McCarthy a lot. I have the Vikings coming up to get him. Where do you think JJ McCarthy ends up? Do you think it's Washington?
Yeah, he's cute. That's QB3.
Okay.
And anyone would be stupid to let him fall further than that.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Bo Nix, the consensus. I was making a joke that it's become the chorus of the song is that Bo Nix will be a Denver Bronco. Is there smoke or is there fire where that smoke is, or do you think it's somewhere else?
I've heard about that, yeah. I have. And I think he's also going to end up in a good situation.
Yeah,
I really do.
Denver would
I am happy that it seems like all these guys that I really like, they tend to end up in good situations because no one bets on them the way that I do. And I'm happy for them in that aspect.
No, that's awesome. And the last one I'm going to ask you about, and it's interesting because you are definitely the most negative person I've heard on Michael Penix Jr. Josh had him going to the Seahawks, staying in the Northwest. I had him going to the Raiders. Where do you think Michael Penix Jr. ends up?
I think he's going to Mr. Irrelevant. I'm joking. I think he's going mid first round.
Okay.
And I think he's also going to end up in a good situation. I'm just curious to see how he develops himself and stays healthy with whatever team that he ends up with. But I am happy that we are at least off the train of Michael Penix Jr. is going to go like early first round and everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns, because that's not going to be the case.
With him being mid first, do you see something like Vikings or Saints for him?
Yeah, I could see Vikings or Saints for him. I think he's actually a pretty good fit for like the Saints as a team that I've covered. But I think mechanically there is still work abound to be done. I am not anyone who knows how to evaluate quarterbacks from a mechanical aspect is not impressed by Michael Penix Jr. by a large margin.
And the last question we have to ask you, because you've done it now for 2 years, Brock Purdy, Tyson Bagent, maybe not to the level of Brock Purdy. Who is your sleeper for the 2025 draft? Who are we going to be talking about next year like we were talking about Spencer Rattler this year?
If Carson Beck falls, for sure. I think he's the best prospect in the nation. But I mean, like,
Wow.
if he falls at all, then yeah. I mean, like I said, another very high floor guy. And he's gonna be viewed the same way as all these other guys are. He's gonna be viewed the same way that Brock Purdy was, the same way that all the guys that, like, I really hype up, and they're like, oh, what has he done? Well, he's done what his offensive coordinator has asked him to do, and
Exactly.
for whatever reason, that's not enough for most people, apparently. So,
Crissy, talking to you is so refreshing compared to talking to fantasy analysts, because all we care about, we don't give a shit about mechanics. It's can they run? How are they going to score me fantasy points? This was awesome because, one, you tell it like it is. I've never heard someone so down on Michael Penix. That's one that's going to stick with me. And now I need to go back. I need to go back and reevaluate. I'm not a big college football guy. I love the pro game. I'm big on fantasy football. And so I go and I catch up on these guys by listening to very smart people like you. And you've certainly opened my eyes on Michael Penix, and it's worth taking a look to. Thank you so much. I know this is an insanely busy time for you. Thank you for carving out some time for us.
Thank you so much.
Please remind everybody where they can find your work. We've been retweeting a lot of the quarterback articles we found for you because we're doing a little quarterback series, but we're going to do anything else we find. Where can people find what you're working on?
Yeah, it's Crissy_Froyd on Twitter, and then it's just Crissy Froyd on Instagram. That's where I pretty much post all my stuff.
Perfect. Guys, that's going to be the end of the show. Next week, we are going into the running back position with Stars of Tomorrow, and it's going to be Jagger Maye, good friend of mine from Football Guys. Crissy jumped off the show already. I know she was having some technical issues there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. Subscribe to that YouTube page. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.